What is attitudes? Attitude is a lasting general evaluation of people, objects, advertisements, or issues. A learned predispositions attitude have a motivated quality which consumers may propel or repel towards certain brands of a product. It is a learned predisposition to behave in a consistently favorable or unfavorable way with respect to a given object. Moreover, attitude is a lasting general evaluation of people, objects, advertisements, or issues. Attitudes also are lasting because they tend to endure over time. Although attitude is consistent, but it is not necessary to be permanent, whereby a certain situation may cause attitude to change. Anything towards which one has an attitude is called an object. As for example, if we were interested in learning consumers' attitude towards 3 major brands of ice cream, our object might include Baskin-Robbins, Walls, and also Pedal Pop. Moving on, the functions of attitudes. Attitudes exist because they serve some function for the person. As for example, they are determined by a person's motives. Consumers who expect that they will need to deal with similar situations in the future will be more likely to start to form attitudes, whether good or bad. As for example, under the functions of attitudes, we could see CAT's attitude functions, which consists of utilitarian function, value expressive function, ego defensive function, and knowledge function. Now, let's have a look at CAT's attitude functions. Firstly, the utilitarian function. It is a basic principle of reward and punishment. Moreover, consumer may develop positive attitude if they like certain brands and products. Secondly, value expressive function. This function relates to consumers' central value. The product represents the customers. Consumers may form a product attitude because of what the product says about them. As for example, engineers may read gadget magazines. Thirdly, ego defensive function. The attitude's form is to protect themselves either from external or internal threats. As for example, housewives prepare home-cooked meals because they are trying to tell the world that they do not need all those easy mix or instant food. And lastly, knowledge function. In this function, consumers may form an attitude because they need order, structure, and meaning. It also applies when customer is in an ambiguous situation. Consumer inquire for more information before they can respond to something based on knowledge function. Moving on, the functions of attitudes based on the ABC models of attitudes. This model consists of 3, which is affective, behavior, and cognition. Affective is the way a consumer feels about an attitude object. A consumer's emotion or feeling about a particular product or brand constitute the affective component of an attitude. Secondly, the behavior models of attitude. This model involves the person's intentions to do something about an attitude object. It concerns with the likelihood or tendency that an individual will undertake a specific action or behave in a particular way about the attitude object. Lastly, the cognition model of attitude. Under this model, they believe a consumer has an attitude object. It is a knowledge that consumer obtain from combination of direct experience and related information from various sources. Furthermore, there are 3 hierarchies of effects. Firstly, standard learning hierarchy. Secondly, low involvement hierarchy. And lastly, experiential hierarchy based on the table. Now I am going to explain on the attitudes hierarchy. So firstly, the standard learning hierarchy. In this hierarchy, the consumer approaches product decision as a problem-solving process. They would seek for more information, carefully looking at the alternatives, and come to a thoughtful of decision after looking at the alternatives. The second hierarchy is the low involvement hierarchy. In this hierarchy, the consumer does not have strong initial preference. Therefore, they would act on limited knowledge and form an evaluation only after they have bought the product. They will also form an evaluation only after product trial, after they have tried the product. And the experiential hierarchy, the last hierarchy, the consumers act on the basis of their emotional reactions. So it highlights the idea that intangible product attributes can shape the consumer's attitudes towards the product or brand.
There are two types of experiential hierarchy, which is emotional contagion, cognitive affective model, and independence hypothesis. The first one is emotional contagion. Emotions expressed by the communicator of a marketing message affect the attitude toward the product. The second is cognitive affective model, argues that an affective judgment is the last step in a series of cognitive processes. The third one is independence hypothesis. It takes the position that affect and cognition involve two separate independent systems. Forming attitudes, not all attitudes created equal. It is important to distinguish among types of attitudes because not all are formed in the same way. Customers may have high brand loyalty when they have a positive experience towards the brand or product. The levels of commitment to an attitude. The degree of commitment is related to the level of involvement with an attitude object, such as compliance, identification, and internalization. Change of attitudes. Persuasion involves an active attempt to change attitudes. The psychological principles that influence people to change their mind and attitudes. First, reciprocity. We are more likely to give if first we receive. Second, scarcity. Items are more attractive when they are not available. Third, authority. We change our attitude towards certain issue when the authorized people say something about the issue. Fourth, consistency. People try not to contradict of what they say and do. 5. Liking. We are agree with those we like or admire. 6. Consensus. We consider what others do before we decide what to do. Then we move to communication. The elements of communication. Traditionally, marketers rely on the old communication model. Senders send the message in various structures or mediums which receivers will interpret based on their experiences or understanding, and finally marketers will receive feedbacks where they can use it to modify the aspects of message or not. Interactive communication. The traditional model has nothing to it except that not all people would want to be communicated. Hence, conducting communication to mass audience is relatively wasted as not everyone would be a potential consumer. Permission marketing acknowledges that a marketer will be much more successful when he communicates with consumers who have already agreed to listen to them. New message format. M-commerce is a new way of sharing information. Marketers use this medium to promote their goods and services through the wireless devices. With this existence of M-commerce, social media application emerged, which it refers to the set of technologies that enable users to create content and share it with large numbers of others, such as like blogs, podcasts, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and others. The source of message can have a big impact on receivers whether they want to accept it or not. Marketers choose a spokesperson because she or he is an expert, attractive, famous, or trustworthy. Credible and attractiveness are two particularly important characteristics. A source that is credible and attractive when the reward source offers match with the needs of recipients. However, the choice of source is depend on the type of product. Source credibility. It refers to the communicator's expertise, objectivity, or trustworthiness. Consumers believe will weaken if they persist that the source is biased, knowledge bias, reporting bias. A message's credibility increases if consumers think the source qualifications are relevant to the product. To hire a spokesperson is very costly, but the impact on return is high. It relates with consumers' belief towards spokesperson competent.
Source attractiveness. It refers to the social value recipient attribute to a communicator, physical appearance, personality, and status. The social adaptation perspective assumes that the receiver weighs information more heavily if he feels it will help him to evaluate the subject of message. Yes, beauty sells because attractiveness able to attract attention, though we may not focus on the information. Consumers assume that good-looking people are smarter, hyper, and happier. Celebrity as communication source. Messages are more effective when there are logic connection between the star and the product. Also, our brain pay more attention to famous faces and more efficiently process information about this image. Celebrity increase firm advertising and enhance both company image and brand attitudes. How firm choose celebrity? They will decide the meaning of the product and they only identify the match celebrity. No human endorses. Celebrity is effective but also have drawback as we should aware that consumers today are intelligent. They may able to notice that celebrity never used the product before. And for the reason, some marketer use cartoon and mascot to speak for the product. For example, Biscuit Tiger, Kellogg Tiger, and Michelin Tire. Now with the internet, avatar is being used as well. The advantage is we can change to the look of it suit the environment and scenario, cost effective, geographical, unlimited, 24/7 availability. The message. Character of the message is important as it determines the impact of attitude. It includes how we say and what we say. Should she convey the message in word or pictures? How often should she repeat the message? Should it draw a conclusion or should it be left to the listener? Should it present both sides of argument? Should it include sad appeal and negative fear? Or should it be funny? How do we send the message? Picture or visual effect aesthetic of the product. Verbal affect the reward punishment of the product. Visual enable people to chunk the information for the better memory trace and retrieval. Verbal is effective on high involvement purchases as it requires more mental processing. Picture and visual affect aesthetic of the product. How do we send the message? Repeat the message. Repeating the same message will enable people to become more familiar. People will act positively towards something that they are familiar. Repetition can be boost consumer awareness of the brand, but too much of repetition can lead habituation, the two factor of theory. How do we structure the argument? A source presents an argument and tries to convince the receiver to shift his or her opinion. Supportive argument. Present one or more positive attribute about the product or reason to buy. Refutational argument. First, raise negative issue and then dismiss it. The approach increase source credibility because it reduces reporting bias. Should the argument draw conclusion or should the marketers merely present the fact and let consumer arrive at own decision? Consumer who make their own inference instead of having them spoon-fed to them will form stronger, more accessible attitude. But leaving them with ambiguous increase the chance that the consumer will not form the desired attitude. We compare our product or our competitors. In the Western country, it is encouraged to name competing brand in their ads. The government did this because to improve the information available to consumer. Comparative advertising refers to the strategy in which messages compare to one or more recognizable brand and weight them in terms of one or more specific attributes. And last from me, type of message appeal. First, emotional vs rational appeals, sex appeals, humorous appeals, and fear appeals. Thank you so much.